started. And I just want to take a moment to welcome everyone to our classroom to boardroom workshop as a part of Walker Spring Connect. And this workshop is all about you all as students learning secrets from our recent alumni as you enter the workplace, just as they have very recently. So to get us started, just a couple of housekeeping things. I know I mentioned this to some folks who had hopped on a couple minutes before we get started, but I do want to ask that if you are able to have your camera on for the duration of this workshop, that you please do so, just to encourage interaction and so we can put faces to voices, especially towards the end as we ask you all, the audience, to ask some questions of our panelists as well. Another thing is we, at the end of this workshop, are going to have a giveaway. Our office, Business Career Services, is sponsoring this workshop. So we have sponsored a giveaway for one lucky attendee to receive at the end of this. So in order to be eligible for this giveaway, all you have to do is hang out with us here for the duration of this workshop. And at the end, my co-pilot, Taylor Mack, is going to take all of the names of the folks that stayed to the end, put them on a wheel, and she will spin that wheel to see who wins that prize. And once we do that, we just ask that you'll stay on so we can get your information as to where to send that. So again, at the end of this, we are going to be opening up the floor to questions from you all, as you may think of some things as our panelists talk. If you want to wait to the end and raise your hand, whether physically or you want to wait and raise your hand with the raise your hand feature in Zoom, we can take your questions that way. If you're not exactly comfortable getting on screen or asking live yourself, please type that question into the chat box. And again, my co-pilot Taylor will be manning that and keeping track of those questions. Awesome. So enough housekeeping, enough hearing from me. I want us to hear from our panelists. So welcome you all. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days and your busy schedules to be with us here today. And welcome back to Appalachian. So if we just want to get started, if each of you will go and tell us your name, when you graduated, what you studied while you were here, and then what you're up to now.
Awesome. I'll kick it off. I'm 6 words. I graduated from Appalachian State May of 2019. I did a double major in marketing and management, and I now work for a company called TTI, Tectonic Industries. We're a power tool company, and I'm an event marketing manager for TTI.
Awesome.
I'll go next. I'm Sean. I graduated in May of 2018. Recently started my MBA at App Online back in August. So came back and majored in finance, and then currently work for Campbell Soup in supply chain finance. So everything that we ship around the country is kind of what I'm in charge of.
Awesome.
Alrighty, and my name is Samantha Wiersum. I'm actually not from App. We didn't have anybody on our recruiting team here in Asheville that graduated from App. So I'm here instead. I'm from Illinois and I went to college in Indiana. So a little bit different, but my degree was in marketing with a concentration in sales and a medical sales certificate. And I graduated in May of 2020. COVID ruined the graduation process a little bit, but I have a degree, so.
Excellent. That is what matters, even if you didn't get to make it to commencement. Well, welcome, Samantha, and welcome back to Sam and Sean as well. So the first question I want to ask you all is when you were in college, and whether you were in the College of Business or somewhere else, what were some of the most valuable experiences that you feel like you had? This could be a class, this could be a study abroad or some extracurricular. What's something in hindsight that you saw to be extremely valuable?
Well, for me, I utilized the BB&T Leadership Center a lot. I was a Walker Fellow in the College of Business, and that was the best program. I learned so much. I learned a lot professionally, and I grew a lot personally. having that office and actually using it is what has pushed me to be where I am now professionally. I learned a lot about resume skills, how to have interviews, how to be here in front of a panel, having these conversations now. So it's been really great. And I'm glad that I got to use all those resources that the College of Business has to offer.
Awesome. Thank you for that shameless plug, Sam.
Yeah, I say the same thing. I didn't utilize it at first, but then once I utilized BB&T leadership and used it for resume and all the little workshops that they have going around, it definitely helped put me where I am today. A little bit more professional. They sound corny at first when you first start going to them, but they definitely do help just with trying to learn how to be more professional and how to build a resume and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And my response to that question would be, I would definitely recommend going to any type of networking events. Anytime you get to talk to somebody, interview with somebody, definitely do it. I know it's a little bit harder now that everything's online, but even when I was doing interview processes, I was from Illinois, Indiana. A lot of mine were over Zooms or over FaceTimes over my phone, and just having that constant practice of interviewing throughout my entire college career has helped me be a lot more comfortable speaking in front of people and doing different events. So.
Excellent. So in all of your answers, you all highlighted some of what we call soft skills, right? So when we think about skills that you're taking into the workplace, we think of hard skills, which are your more tangible skills, like if you can run certain software, as I'm sure Sean does all the time, or if you know a certain language or certain things like that. But you all alluded to these soft skills, these communication skills, right? Being able to talk to people, being able to be here today and sit on this panel and things like that. So what are some of the other soft skills that you would say you took from college and then now into your first role outside of college?
Yeah, for me, I would say time management has been one of the biggest aspects. A lot about how to plan my time by doing extracurriculars, being in different jobs in college, having all my courses. And that is a big part that now I'm glad I had, because time management can be a really hard part of balancing. Just like the time management of understanding a work-life balance, because that is important too. Leaving college is making sure you establish that for yourself, but also you get all of the tasks done that you need to for work. So time management, communication, those are really big things that I use on a daily basis that I learned in college.
Awesome.
Yeah, I say communication. As much as you hate those group projects, you work with people every single day. So doesn't matter if you want to talk to them or not, you still have to work with them. So the communication is being able to work together as a team, because you're all in the end trying to get towards one goal. So I think any group project you have, put all your effort into it. And if you are that person who ends up being the person who sets everything up, that's better for you, because it's going to set you apart when you get to interviews and into your job as well.
I would say public speaking is a big one. Even though you're not going to be standing in front of huge venues of people all the time, you're going to have to talk to your boss's boss. You're going to have to be professional. You're going to have to present ideas, as well as interview with the same people constantly for promotions if you want to stay with the same company. So public speaking, getting that comfort to stand in front of people and talk about things that you may not be comfortable talking about, or just anything in general. Public speaking has been the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, those are all great. And you all three highlighted some really different forms of communication, which I love. And I think as we are continuing into the virtual workspace, that is only continuing more and more, that we're having to learn new kinds of communication and communicate with people that are far away as well. So when we think about more skills, what are some of the things that you wish that you had more of when entering the workplace, or skills that you wish you had at all when you first entered the workplace?
For me personally, I'd say don't be afraid to ask questions. At least in my first position, I was in accounting, and so it wasn't necessarily foreign to me, but it was something that I didn't go to school for. So I was asking any kind of questions in order to learn more about accounting and how it works, debits, credits, whatever it may be. Just don't be afraid to ask questions, because I don't think your manager is expecting you to come in and know everything right away. And so the more questions you ask, the more you're willing to learn, and it'll kind of set you apart from just sitting there and kind of not asking questions and just going with the flow.
For me, it was definitely pushing myself to be uncomfortable. I went into a job that I didn't know anything about power tools. And now I've learned a lot. I've done a lot with sales that I also wasn't expecting for myself. Never expected to go into Home Depots and sell power tools every day. Pushing myself outside of my comfort zone and realizing that just because you studied something specific, be open to all of the options that basically the jobs have to offer, because being open allows you to have a lot more opportunities and growth later on.
Mine would definitely be getting to know people that I work with on a constant basis a little bit better. I just got my job in June, so I've only been here for 8 months. So I haven't really had a ton of experience, and I'll probably move soon again. But if I was to come in right away, trying to focus my time on learning who these people are, what they want, I could better help them. But it's paint. I sell paint. I work for Sherwin. I'm sorry if I forgot to say that. But just learning the contractors you work with on a day-to-day basis, and just focusing more on getting to know people for who they are instead of what they do, would definitely help me sell better.
Excellent pieces of advice from you all in answering that question. I appreciate it. So next, when we think about your transition from college to the workplace, that obviously includes more things than just your job, right? That has social aspects to it, maybe financial aspects to it. If you're moving somewhere across the country, or like Samantha was saying before we really started this interview, she went to school in the mountains and now she's living at the beach. And so I know that had to have been an adjustment. So when you all think about this adjustment that you've made, not just in your work, but in life in general, what are some of the hardest things that you've run into?
Yeah, for me, after school, you're surrounded by friends 24/7, maybe not as much in the pandemic world. I know that's a little harder, but I was with friends all the time. Always had anybody nearby I could go hang out with. And I packed up and moved to Virginia Beach, where I didn't know anybody, because that's where I was relocating for my job. And it's a little bit harder to make friends outside of college, especially in the setting that I was in for work. It was great. I had people on my team that I could connect with, but I didn't work with them on a day-to-day basis. I have a lot of flexibility in my job, so I'm alone a lot. So it was a little difficult making friends and kind of putting myself out there in that aspect, just because I don't always know how to do it. So that was a big piece. And then two, when you move, like when you're in college, I kind of took for granted how cheap rent was and utilities and things like that. Moving to a brand new city in Virginia Beach, it kind of tripled rent there in comparison to Boone. So it was something that I didn't understand fully, but now like I understood the expectation, or I understand the expectation of better budgeting money, making sure I can pay bills every month and not having to live paycheck to paycheck, because I plan in advance for things like that.
That's a tough one.
For me, definitely, because I grew up in Illinois, went to college in Indiana. They're like 4 hours apart, and then 12 hours to Boone, in the middle of a pandemic. And I lived in a hotel for 9 weeks. So I didn't really have anywhere to stay like with my own. So being comfortable with being alone was a huge adjustment for me. I didn't have a kitchen to cook in, so I had to eat out for 9 weeks straight, going to restaurants by myself, sitting at tables alone. That's not something you really plan for or expect. You're like, oh, you always have people around, or family or friends. But I came here knowing absolutely no one. So being comfortable with being alone is a big adjustment. But once you're able to do that, it is very freeing and it's very empowering.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the opposite of both of them. I'm from Charlotte and then came back to Charlotte after work.
Okay.
So I lived at home for about a year while I worked, and then got an apartment. So I mean, it's not been too difficult besides the sirens that you hear outside. Um, but yeah, I mean, I haven't had too much of an adjustment. I'd say the biggest thing was within my company, it was more older people that I worked with and not younger people. So it was a little bit of an adjustment of always hanging around friends who were closer to your age, but now it was people who were, I don't know, some are 45 with 3 kids. Those are my coworkers at some points. So I think that was a little bit of an adjustment, was just becoming more professional as you're still 22, 23 years old.
Yeah, that's a great point, Sean. That makes me want to ask a follow-up question. So I'm going to go a little rogue here. This was not on the list of questions for you all to prepare, but I'm going to ask it anyways. When it comes to your jobs, how much are you all working with folks that might be older than you, folks that might be younger than you? And what does communicating with different groups of people look like?
Well, for me, I just mentioned like there's people who are older that I work with, but then it kind of turns into a working relationship, and you kind of get past the whole point of them being older than you, and they're just a coworker. So like at first it was a little bit strange because they were like, "Oh, you're 22 and I'm 40." I was like, "Yeah, it's a little weird," but at the end, it's just you kind of work together and you know what you're doing. So I will say at first it's a little bit strange when you go into an office and there's no one your age. I think I was the youngest one there for a year and a half. And then now I finally have 2 coworkers who are similar in age, so it's a little bit different now. But at first, it's a little weird, I will say.
Yeah, and that's great to know to potentially expect that. Absolutely. Sam or Samantha, do you all have anything to add?
Yeah. So I am the assistant manager of the Sherwin store. So I have employees that are younger than me and older than me, and working with different age groups, especially while being their boss, can be uncomfortable sometimes, especially with people who have worked there longer. One of my employees is 62, and she's been working at the store for 5 years, so she definitely knows a lot. And it's a different adjustment trying to learn how to talk to somebody who you used to ask for help and trying to be their boss, as well as working with students, app students that are 22 and 23 that graduated. I have an MT from app working at my store and a full-time employee that went to app working at my store, and they're both 22, 23, and both older than me, and I'm still their boss. So it's different trying to work with each age group, but you kind of learn to adjust. You just gotta keep on going and learn from your mistakes, honestly.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a similar situation for me. I would say that my company, we hire straight out of college. So that's kind of our age group. Everybody on my team that I manage, they're either a year younger than me or about a year older than me. So I'm really kind of right in the middle. The weird transition for me with that was the fact that I was really good friends with half the people that I'm now managers to. So it was kind of weird to go from being really good friends, we'll go out after work and have like a happy hour or hang out on the weekends, to now I'm managing these people. So kind of navigating that a little hard at first, because I was still in that friend mindset when I really needed to kind of switch over to a manager mindset. But two, I just worked with my senior recruiter, and she's a year older than me, and she's already a senior recruiter of the Southeast. So my company promotes very quickly. So I'm around a lot of people that are my age, which is great because people that I work with, other managers, we're all the same age. So we kind of understand the same perspective. But then once you get higher up into the senior level of our company, we do have those higher up age groups. But it's just, it's great. It's been cool to kind of work with people that are my age that understand, and then kind of to see that perspective of people that have been around the block and understand kind of that senior level of management too. So it's a cool balance that my company has.
Yeah, great. And I love that you all are coming from very different perspectives and have different backgrounds on that. So thank you for letting me throw you that curveball of a question. I think those answers are super valuable. So now looking again back to college and your time in college, which wasn't that long ago, what are some things, well, first off, is there anything that you would do differently? And if so, what would that be and why?
For me, I don't think I would do anything differently, to be honest with you. Every experience I had has really molded me into the leader and business professional that I am today. I would definitely continue to have done the things that I did. I was a student orientation leader on campus, and that was a really great experience. And then I was a Walker Fellow in the College of Business. The thing I wish I knew, though, was that just because I've had all these great experiences and I can talk to those in a job interview, you don't always have to have an internship in the field that you're interviewing for. I think that was something that I thought I had to have this special internship in a marketing or management role before applying to any jobs. And all of my experiences that I had in school, even part-time jobs, it was a good point to have those and kind of be able to just talk to all of these things that I've done. It didn't have to be a special internship. It was just putting myself out there in different job opportunities, even if it wasn't in my field, because it gives you great experience regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Those part-time jobs are so valuable. Cannot stress that enough. Totally agree.
So I wouldn't change anything either, but I would say definitely, even though if you like, I majored in finance, but I know when I was in school, I didn't really care to go to a marketing class. So I would say try and focus on the class, even though if it's not for your major, because you will use it. I mean, we focus working in finance, it all comes together. So finance, accounting, marketing, manufacturing, everything supply chain wise, it all works as one. So there's definitely all intertwining classes that are there for a reason and aren't just having you take them to just for fun. It's so you can learn how a business can actually function. So I'd say even if you were a marketing major and you're in a finance class, take the finance seriously because you will probably do some sort of finance related work. And like I mentioned, I started in accounting and majored in finance. So a little bit similar, but not greatly similar. So definitely try in every single class, no matter what the class may be.
And then for me, if I was to go back and tell myself anything, I would do a little bit more research on the jobs you're applying for. When you're still in college looking at jobs, you're kind of just excited about like, oh, how much am I going to get paid? Where am I going to live? Like those things. Definitely research more about the benefits the company has to offer. That's something I was taught kind of at the end, and I wish I would have known a little bit in the beginning, because knowing about health insurance coverage, 401k, stock options, different things that the company offers, as well as looking into and talking to people who work in the company, learning about the culture. You don't want to work somewhere where people are coming in and out all the time, getting hired for jobs, leaving their jobs, quitting. You kind of want to, depending on what you do, but for me, I wanted a job where I was supported within a company and the culture was to help you and motivate you to go further and get promotions and be the best and most successful person you can. So just looking more at the things that you're not told all the time, and looking back into deeper parts of the company than just what's on the surface, because they're going to try to sell you on the best things right off the beginning. They're going to be like, oh, we're going to pay you this much money, or we're going to do this for you, but make sure you know really what the company is deep in its roots, because that'll definitely change the options for you.
Mm-hmm. Excellent advice, Samantha. Thank you. So I have another road question. You brought up so much good stuff that I have another road question to ask. So and if Samantha, if you have more to add to this, please do. But Sam and Sean also, in thinking about your process of applying to jobs, as you were looking at different companies, interviewing with different companies, what is something that you all wish you knew about the job search that you didn't know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I really wish I had paid more. I agree with what Samantha said about the benefits aspect of it, because think about that as much when you're going through it, but also understanding, does your company promote a healthy work-life balance? Because you can't work 12 to 16 hours every single day. It's unrealistic, and it's unhealthy. So having a company that promotes not only your professional growth, but your personal growth as well, and understanding that mental health is important, and you can't do it all. So a company just can't expect you to do it all. And that's something too, like that's kind of one of the reasons I picked TTI, is because they really pushed the aspect of, we are a family organization and we care about you as a person. And a lot of other companies I interviewed with, I didn't just get that same feel. So when you're in an interview, they're not just interviewing you, you're interviewing that company and you're deciding, is this the best fit for me? And going back, I wish I had done that a little bit more. It's something I tell people now when I'm interviewing them. Hey, this is not just an interview for me to decide if you're great for this company. It's for you to decide as well, is this the best fit for me? Because it won't be for everybody. And that's an important aspect to understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing about you're interviewing the company as well. Don't just accept the job if you don't think the company culture is going to be something that you're going to enjoy, or if you're going to work too much, or if it's just something that you don't have a good vibe with when you leave the interview. I know my company culture wise, it's pretty laid back. It's casual for work. You just wear whatever you want. As long as you get your work done, it's not really a big deal. So I think that was a big plus. And then work-life balance is also pretty big. Sam touched on it pretty well. You can't work 15 hours a day, even though there are some days where you have to, but it comes down to the point where there's a stopping point. So like, I don't know, I typically say like anything after like 6, nothing productive happens. So then that's when I typically just shut it off.
Sure. Anything else you want to add, Samantha, to that?
Yeah, actually just make sure when you are interviewing places that, especially if you're at career fairs, you may really like somebody and be like, oh, I really like this person. I connect with them. I'm going to apply for this job. It seems great. Make sure that when you do that, you ask to meet other people in the company, ask to do either like store walkthroughs or site walkthroughs, or just get to know a little bit more of the people, because obviously we're a little bit part of recruiting, but make sure that when you do it, you meet everybody from all different areas, especially wherever you want to work, because not every area is going to have that person and that connection you're going to have. Everywhere is going to be a little different. So just make sure you do that.
Yeah, great point. And I think similar to, I don't remember who said it earlier, forgive me, but speaking to company culture and making sure that you're aware that it is a good fit for you. There are many cultures within a full-on company culture, right? And even like you're saying, Samantha, at Sherwin-Williams, I'm sure there's a different culture in every store, right? Just depending on who's there, how that team works together and things like that. So continuing on with this job search theme and your processes of finding a job, how did you all come to find your job? Was it on LinkedIn? Was it at Handshake? Was it a career fair? What did that process look like for you all?
For me, I found it through the App State Career Fair. I had first heard of TTI as a sophomore, hadn't thought anything into it, went on the next several years. And then a friend of mine actually told me, hey, Sam, you should apply for TTI. I think you'd be a great fit. He already worked at the company. So I decided to apply and went through the whole process. And that's honestly how I found most jobs that I applied for. App State, I used Handshake. Handshake's actually something that the recruiters for my company use a lot. Handshake's great. I know I looked on LinkedIn a lot, but honestly, at the end of the day, I really did utilize the career fair panels like this when I was in school. That's kind of where I learned the most about jobs and opportunities that were out there.
Excellent.
Yeah, I found my job through LinkedIn, but used the career fair and everything that was available through the Walker College of Business to kind of search for jobs and kind of get your foot in the door. So, I mean, kind of look wherever. I know when I was a senior, Campbell's they didn't go to the career fair. I think we started 2 years ago. So I mean, we've been at the career fair for the last 2 years now. So you'll see us there more, but I know when I found it first, it was just through LinkedIn.
Okay. So when you found that job on LinkedIn, what was your first step in applying to that job? Did you apply directly through LinkedIn? Did you have to reach out to one of their recruiters first? What did that look like?
So I applied through LinkedIn and then reached out to the recruiter as well, because I saw it was a entry-level position. So it wasn't like a senior level where you needed 5 to 7 years of experience or something. So I kind of applied and then sent an email saying that I applied and sent my resume as well, just to make sure that if they didn't get a response, I at least know I reached out to the recruiter, so she had it. So just do as much as you can so you get your name out there.
Love it. Love it. Samantha, how about you?
For me, I did a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, but for my job specifically, got the most out of career fairs, networking events, and etiquette dinners. I don't know if App does this, but just sitting down and talking to professionals within different areas of business, creating that connection. I emailed them asking questions. After I met almost every single person in the career fair, I got a card and I emailed them saying like, thank you, it was great talking to you. I would love to have a couple more conversations with you, ask you some more questions, and just kind of putting my name out there. And in my junior year, I got an internship with Sherwin. So I did that over the summer, continued working part-time in Indiana, and they wanted me to stay full-time, but I was like, no way, I'm staying in the Midwest. And because of the connections I created with many different people from Sherwin-Williams, they were able to send my resume out here and get me hired and relocated just from an internship and a part-time employee. So just really connecting with people at different events was the reason I got my job.
Excellent. Again, I love how all of your experiences are so different and you're able to offer insight from so many different angles. So again, keeping on this theme, applying for jobs, what would you say is something that you did or a skill that you have or an experience that you have? What is one thing that you really believe helped you to stand out in your interview process to ultimately land your first job?
For me, it was definitely, I have a very bubbly, energetic personality. And sometimes even in difficult or uncomfortable situations, I can be a little closed off, but it was just really throwing myself out there. Hey, this is me, this is what I've done, and owning those experiences and owning this is who I am. If that's not a fit for your company, that's great. But understanding that I'm an asset and I have a lot to provide, because like you have to have confidence in yourself and know that if you don't get a job offer from this particular company, then it's just not the right spot for you. And I confidently believed that whatever was going to happen for me was what was the best thing. And also too, don't just jump at the first job. I think when I first got an offer, I was really excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my first job offer after school. And I didn't end up accepting that opportunity. And it was something that I'm very glad I didn't, because at the time, it really wasn't the best fit for me and what I wanted, but it was just exciting to have a full-time job lined up, because it can be something too where you're like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to find a job. I've been interviewing everywhere or applying everywhere, but there is the perfect job out there for you after school. So don't just pick a job because you were offered a job.
My experience, I would say, would be, I don't know how many finance majors we have on the call, but it would be Bowden Investment Group. Being a part of Bowden through finance definitely set me apart from many other finance majors, just because of the rigor of the class and what the pedigree that it has, and just being able to really fundamentally analyze stocks and kind of take the extra step as an undergrad and go through a process like that gives you a lot to talk about during interviews and kind of what the process is for getting into Bowden.
For me, I think something that kind of made me stand out in interviews is knowing who I am. I'm not the smartest person, but I am very hardworking and I will ask many questions. And that's something I talked about too, is I don't know everything, especially working in like a construction industry, same as Samantha, is I don't know everything and it's going to take me a while to learn it, but I'm not going to stop. I'm going to work hard and I'm going to ask questions that I need to, and just kind of being an honest person in interviews, because if they're going to hire you, they're going to see who you really are at some point. So just having that confidence to know who you are and know what makes you a good employee. And everyone is a little bit different. You may be super smart, outgoing. There's so many different things you can be, but definitely showing what you're strongest in is what helped me, I think.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your answers. So now that we have just a few minutes left, I would love to open up the floor for some audience questions. If anybody, like I said, if you want to raise your hand, and Taylor, if you will help me keep my eyes peeled for anyone that might be raising their hand for a question. So any questions? Yes. Is it Anna? Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you all so much for meeting with us today. It's really appreciated. You guys said some really helpful things. I'm currently applying, so I'm not in the business school. I'm currently applying to jobs in public relations and journalism area in Charlotte, North Carolina. And as I've been turning in my resumes, I like, especially for the PR jobs, they're kind of like, we want someone who's like bubbly, like knows how to talk to people. And my resume highlights more like the job experience I have like within my major, as in like internships I had and like articles I'd written for the newspaper. But I am currently a waitress right now at like a coffee shop or something, or not, I don't know why I said or something. I'm a waitress at like a bakery, and I've been wondering if I need to add to my resume like the jobs that I think are maybe less important but could also help me stand out, because I feel like seeing that I wait tables and stuff, it can show like, oh, she has experience being hospitable and welcoming and like knows how to talk to people. Would you guys say to include the jobs you've had even if you don't think they're relevant to what you're applying to?
I would always say I kind of tailored each resume specifically for each job. It was a little tedious and time consuming, but at the end of the day, depending on what they were looking for, I would take off certain jobs that I had done or extracurriculars and add others. So I don't think that that's a bad thing to highlight. It really kind of just depends on, again, what you want to put out there to that particular company. Because I know for my company, when I look at resumes, seeing a part-time job is a great thing. Like, it's not something that anybody would ever turn up their nose at or think is a bad thing to have, because it definitely also shows that customer aspect, shows you're good at talking to people. So I think tailoring it specifically to what you think that company would want to see is never a bad thing.
I agree with her, definitely, because you're going into that public relations area. Being a server of any sort is never easy. And I think pretty much every job kind of looks at the resume for that serving job, because that is what your customer service is. That is, if you can talk to people, if you're comfortable dealing with not very nice people all the time. So I would definitely put it on there if you have room for it, because being in the service industry is something that I'm pretty sure every company looks at.
Yeah, I would say add it as well. I know since I've been doing some of these interviews, like for internships and stuff, when you get them, you're not fully expecting them to have the best or like the most relevant work experience. So, I mean, just showing anything that still shows that you can kind of relate what you're doing to your major in any sort of way definitely helps.
Awesome. Thank y'all.
Yeah, great question, Anna. Anybody else have any questions? Raise your hand. Okay. Am I missing anyone? Well, then I have another question because we still have time. So when we've asked you a lot of questions, we have, Jonathan. Jonathan, do you have a question?
Oh, yes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard Sean say he went back for his MBA. I just wanted to know maybe some of the thought process behind that and how it helped you in your career.
Yes, the main thought process was it was COVID, so why not go back when you can't do anything? A little bit of an adjustment. It's 2 years out of school, so going back and starting and studying, definitely more of an adjustment than as well as it's all online. So it's a lot of reading textbooks, watching lectures. It's more on you to do the work. And the thought process is just down the road when you're trying to get a job and you're trying to move up the corporate ladder, having the MBA will definitely help. Show that you took the extra time to go back and learn more and set yourself apart from someone else who doesn't have the MBA. And like I said before, it also helps learning how a business works. Because I will say, being an undergrad, I didn't know how a company as big as Campbell's actually functions 100%. And now that I've been working here for almost 3 years, you kind of see how everything goes one-on-one with how a company that's 150 years old can continue to run.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, I don't want to miss anybody else. And do we have any other questions from our participants? I don't see anything in the chat box. I just want to double check. All right, well, I'm going to ask one final question to you all before we do our giveaway and figure out who our winner is. But we've asked you lots of different kinds of questions about all different aspects. But is there anything else that you want, any other piece of advice or insight that you want to give our students that we may have not asked you about yet? Anything that you're like, oh, I got to say that one thing before I leave this group of students?
I would just say leaving college and going into the working world can be a big adjustment. Sometimes for me, when I first transitioned, I watched this podcast. It was on imposter syndrome. And I felt like, am I really meant to be here? Am I really doing a good job? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing with my life? And honestly, I am. I'm exactly where I should be right now. And I'm very happy with where I am, but it's definitely not a bad thing if you start to kind of question or you look back and you're like, am I doing everything right? Am I doing enough? As long as you're giving 100% of what you have and understanding that you can't do it all, because you really can't. I think that was something for me is I had to set sometimes boundaries. In the first role with my company, it was a very easy, you go in at 8 o'clock, you leave at 4:30. But then moving through to a management position, for me, it was setting up that boundary for myself of work-life balance. Sean kind of mentioned it earlier. Nothing good happens after 6 o'clock. So turn it off, come back to it tomorrow, because there's always work that you can do. So it's understanding that you have to go do things for yourself, whether it's go and hang out with friends, go to the gym, do whatever, like go cook dinner. Honestly, there's so many times where it's easy to get wrapped up in work and not always turn it off. So taking care of yourself and setting up those boundaries is always an important thing, and to know that you are doing enough, even when you feel like you might not be.
Can you repeat the question? My internet was being weird and kind of cut out.
Oh, you're good. I just am asking if there is something that you haven't said already, a piece of advice or insight that you want to share with the students that are listening today.
Yeah, I'd say be prepared for the interviews. Like I mentioned before, I have been interviewing for internships and then full-time as well, coming out of college for Campbell's, and the amount of times where you see the resume on paper and it looks good, but then they come into the interview and they don't really have anything of substance and they're not prepared, kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth. So even if it takes an extra 2 hours to prepare for an interview or just know any sort of information about the company, I would definitely just put the little extra time in, because it also make you stand out a little bit more and say, oh, this person actually did the research and they know what they're talking about. They kind of know what we do in those kind of aspects.
My last piece of advice, it would be get involved with your company. When you first start working, you kind of usually just look at your job, try to focus on that. For me, I liked being busy. My job wasn't enough. So I asked questions and I got involved in more district, a part of the women's resource group, or a leader of the women's resource group, a part of the recruiting group, a part of the inclusion and diversity group. Just getting involved is giving me opportunities to go do community service activities, meet more people, as well as meet very important people in my company. I have a very big meeting next week just because of the fact that I asked and got involved. I'm chosen to meet with higher ups in the company, which you don't always get. So I would just recommend wherever you go, try to get involved, try to do what you can to put your name in everybody's head, because it'll definitely help with the promotions as well.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. I so appreciate all of your advice, students. I really, really hope that you were taking lots of notes in what they were saying. They had so many good things to say. So hopefully we can all see everybody now. So if we can do a round of applause for our panelists to thank them so much for taking time out of their busy schedules to do this. And what I would like to do, Taylor, is I'm going to turn it over to you while we got a couple minutes left for our giveaway.
Sure. So are we just doing one giveaway or are there multiple?
There is just one giveaway to my knowledge.
All right.
Yep.
I will go ahead and share my screen. All right, so I got everybody's names plugged in. Right. All right, so our winner is Jennifer Evans.
Jennifer, are you still here? Jennifer? Let me scroll through and see if I can see.
Yeah, it says she's on the participants list.
Jennifer, awesome. Okay, well, Jennifer, if you're still on here, please be sure to stick around so we can get your contact information and how to share your prize with you.
Okay, great. Well, how would you like for me to message you my contact info? Would that be easiest?
Yeah, you can send that to me in the chat. That would be great.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, folks, that is all that we have for this panel today. Again, thank you so much to Sam and Samantha and Sean for your insight and your advice today. We were so glad to have you all.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Did you get what you needed from me for the info?
Let's see here. It is all kind of dispersed within the
Oh.
chat. Just because there were some people, saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. But I see here we have Evans JN at App State, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then your phone number, 336 572 2441. All right. I think that should be good. Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.